Hi, this is Kristen with Hooks, Books, and Wanderlust, and today I want to show you how to crochet my Edith Coaster and Washcloth pattern. This pattern uses a CYC4 worsted weight cotton yarn, and here this washcloth uses the Hobby Lobby I Love This Cotton, while this other coaster here in aqua uses the Lily Sugar and Cream, and I've got one coaster here using Knit and Crochet from Joann's, which is a size 3. So let's go ahead and jump in and I will show you how to make this pattern. To get started for this video, I'm going to be using Lily's Sugar and Cream yarn. It is, again, a size 4 CYC4 worsted weight yarn. I am going to be using that with an H hook or a 5mm hook. You're also going to need some scissors and a tapestry needle. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so for this video, I'm going to work up the coaster variation. So I'm going to leave myself a nice long tail. Whether you're working the coaster or the washcloth, you want to leave at least a good 6-inch tail, and then make a nice slip knot to get started. For the coaster, I'm going to start with a chain of 16 chains. If you are working the washcloth, you will work 30 chains. You'll have an even number so that when you include that turning chain, it will be an odd number of stitches for your body. So just a really quick tip, when I am chaining out my foundation chain, I like to work in a specific multiple. Often if my stitch pattern requires a multiple, I'll do it with that. I'm just doing it in multiples of 5 for this video, but I will chain 5, move my thumb, and then chain another 5. So I can actually chain without actively counting. Obviously I'm talking and counting at the same time, which is not easy, but because I'm doing it this way, it works out. So now I have 15 chains. I need 16. So there's my 16 chains. So for row 1, we're going to work half double crochet stitches into each chain of our foundation chain, starting with the second chain from our hook. And I'm going to be working into the back bump. I think that it gives a more finished edge, whether you are adding a border or not, but especially if you're adding a border, it gives a lot easier access to those stitches when you go to work it later. So I highly recommend working into the back bump if you can. If not, it's fine. Just work into one of the loops like you're used to. So go ahead and finish row 1. Again, you're just working half double crochets in each chain all the way across. If you get to the end, then you should have 15 stitches for your coaster or 29 stitches for your washcloth. Okay, so I have reached the end of my row 1. I have 15 stitches for my coaster. You should have 29 for your washcloth. Go ahead and chain 1 and turn your work. And from here, we are ready to begin row 2. Row 2 is the first of our 2-row pattern repeat. So the first stitch is going to be regular old half double crochet into the first stitch. The second stitch, you're going to be working into the 3rd loop of your half double crochet. So yarn over, insert underneath that 3rd loop, and pull up a loop and half double crochet as normal. You're just going to continue repeating a regular half double with a 3rd loop half double all the way across. So let's watch it again. So regular half double in the 3rd loop. Regular half double in the 3rd loop. Continue that all the way across. You should end with a half double, with just a regular half double. Sometimes it's a little tricky getting into that last stitch, so just make sure you're under the top V and finish your stitch. So there you go, that is row 2 complete. You should still have 15 or 29 stitches depending on which project you are working. Whoops. Go ahead and chain 1 and turn your work, and now we are ready to begin row 3, and this will be the 2nd row of our 2-row repeat. So where this differs from the original Lady Edith stitch pattern video that I posted previously, in that video, I just continue repeating row 2. but that's because I started out with an even number of stitches. So I had 14, we'll say, instead of 15 stitches. So it worked out to be a perfect alternating 2-stitch repeat, which is great. But in this instance, to make my border work, I need to have an odd number of stitches, which means in order to do that, I need to kind of change up how I'm doing the stitch just a little bit. So for row 3, I'm going to do a half double in the first stitch, just a regular one. And you're going to do a half double in the second stitch, again, a regular one. And then from here, you're going to do that same repeat all the way across. So you'll do half double in the third loop, regular half double. Half double in the third loop, regular half double. My yarn is knotting up on me here. And you'll just keep repeating that all the way across until you have 1 stitch left, and then you will work just a regular half double. So you should have 2 regular half doubles at the beginning and at the end of this row. So I'm finishing, here's my third loop, and here's my next repeat, and I'm down to 1 stitch left. And you can see that that last stitch I made was a regular half double. I've got 1 stitch left, and again, watch where you're at on that last stitch so that you get under the top V, and you're just going to make a standard half double crochet into that stitch. So here you can see, let me move some of this extra yarn out of the way here. Here you can see that you are actually starting with 2 regular half doubles and you're ending with 2 regular half doubles. And I like that that's kind of nesting those third loop stitches in the center, and it'll look really nice when you have the body complete. So from here, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work, and you're going to repeat row 2. So you're just going to do a standard half double and then a half double in the third loop all the way across. So as you come up on the end of your row 2 repeats, you will have a regular half double, just 1 on each end. So that's how you know which repeat you're on, which row repeat you're on. Row 2 will have just 1, and then row 3 will have 2 flanking each side before you get into your third loops. So for the next row, again, you're just going to chain 1, turn, and repeat row 3. So we'll start with 2 half double crochets, and then half double crochet into that third loop. And repeat across. Regular half double, third loop. Regular half double, third loop. And you'll continue this all the way across until you have 1 stitch left, and you'll put a standard half double into that last stitch. So that row 3 repeat ends with 2 standard half double crochets. And that is your pattern repeat, worked twice now. So you're going to keep repeating alternating rows of rows 2 and 3 until you have a total of 10 rows. It's going to be pretty easy to count how many rows you have just by looking at your stitches here. So if you are looking, you can see this first row of half double crochet, obviously is row 1, and then this smaller little V here is our second row. So we have 1, 2, 4, and 5. So if you just count your V's. So I've got 5 rows right now, so I'm about halfway done. I am going to go ahead and finish repeating until I have my 10 rows complete, and I will meet you back here. Okay, so I have finished working my 10 rows for my coaster. If you are working the washcloth, you should have 18 rows. Then we are ready for the final row of the body of our project, which is going to be just another row of standard half double crochet so that we kind of match on the top as we do on the bottom here. So I'm going to go ahead and work my chain 1 and turn. One quick thing before I do that is I want to mention that you should have an odd number of your pattern repeat rows here, which means that just because you started with a row 2 repeat, you should actually finish with a row 2 repeat because it's an odd number of rows. So don't be surprised by that. Okay, so let's work our last row of our body here and work half double crochets into each of the stitches all the way across. and then we can start our border. Okay, and as I work this last stitch here, now you should have a total of 11 rows for your coaster and 19 rows for your washcloth. You should have an odd number of stitches across. Here with the coaster you should have 15, and if you have the washcloth it should be 29. So now we are ready to start working the border. I have two options for this in the written pattern, where one uses the same color that we're using currently for the body. We call that the main color. And then another option uses a contrasting color. So I'm going to show you how to do both, because depending on if you have to cut the yarn or not, you're going to attach or start your border in a different location. So here I'm going to go ahead and show you the border in the same as the main color first. So the first thing I want to say is, regardless of whether you're using a contrasting color, do not cut off after you finish the body. The first round of your border should be worked in the same color as your main color, your body. So regardless of which option you're doing, the first round is going to be the same. So you're going to chain 1 and turn your work 90 degrees. So we're going to single crochet evenly across the left side edge of our rows of half double crochet. And what I like to do, it gets a little tricky trying to make sure you have evenly worked your stitches. And when I was a beginner, this is something that really confounded me, and I would end up with either pulling my work too tightly because I had too few stitches, or I'd end up waving with my border because I had too many. So if you are working with half double crochets, at least with single and double, it's easy. You just work 1 border stitch for every row of single crochet, and then 2 border stitches for every row of double crochet. But for half double crochet, which is somewhere between the height of both of those stitches, I find that it works best to go in a pair of rows gets 3 border stitches. So let me show you what I mean. So when I go to work, here's my final row and then the row before that. So I'm gonna work 3 stitches over these 2 rows. So my first, and I'm gonna do a single crochet. So I've got chain 1, and our first border is just gonna be single crocheting all the way around. It's just basically like a setup row. So I've got one that goes around the post of that half double crochet. I'm gonna insert my hook into where I put that half double crochet into that top of that stitch. And then I'm going to go around the post of the next one, so that I have 3 single crochets, 3 border stitches worked over these 2 rows of half double crochet. So I'm going to show you again. So here we have the post, and then this post stitch is coming out of the top V of the stitch below, right? So I'm going to go and use that same space, and then I'm going to go around the post of the half double crochet in that second row. So around the post, into that stitch, and then around the post. And I'm going to keep doing that all the way across. The thing to keep in mind, especially when you're doing these side edges, is that you want to make sure that you have an odd number of stitches. And if you need to kind of fudge at the end just to make sure that that happens, then make sure that you do that, because you do need to have an odd number of stitches in order to make this border work. So I'm going to make sure I have my odd number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I've got 1 row left, and I'm just going to kind of fudge it a little bit. I'm going to work another single crochet around the post, and then I'm going to kind of go into that bottom chain to work another one. So now I have 17 stitches along the side edge of my work here. So from here to turn the corner, I am actually just going to do a chain 1, and then I'm going to work into that same chain that I just did that final stitch in, and I'm going to work over my tail from when I started, just to kind of hide that as I go. So you're just going to single crochet into each of those chain stitches, and this is where having worked into the back bump on that first row really kind of comes in handy, because then you have a top V, well, I guess technically it's a bottom V of those chains to work into. And as I get to that final chain, I finished that row. I should have 15 for my coaster or 29 along that bottom edge. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And that's my chain 1 where I turned the corner. So that's perfect. So you want to make sure that you're counting on this round because again, it is necessary to have an odd number of border stitches on each side. So now we're going to chain 1 to turn the corner. I'm going to cut that later. So I'm going to get that guy out of there. And I am ready to pick up where I left off. And similar to the first side, I'm going to work 3 border stitches for every 2 rows and make sure that I have an odd number to end with. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same odd number as you get on this side, on the first side, but it should be. So let's try and do that. Okay, so I have my first round or my first row of half double crochets here. So I'm going to work into that or around that post. So there's 1, and then I'm going to go into it again. And there's 2. So now I'm going to go back around this post, 3, and into that the stitch, and then around the post. So you notice that I did 2 single crochets or 2 border stitches on this half double row, which is exactly what I did on this side as well. And then from there, I'm going to do my sets of 3. So around the post, into the stitch, around the post, around the post, into the stitch, around the post. So on and so forth, all the way across. And when you get to the end, make sure that you count your stitches and you have that odd number. One, 2, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16, 17, and that's my chain 1. So perfect. Go ahead and chain 1, turn that corner, and from here you're just going to work a single crochet into each of the stitches across that last side. Okay, so I am done with my last stitch of this round here. Or this side on this round. I'm going to just count my stitches real quick. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. That's exactly as I should have. Now, because I did not start with the chain 1 to turn the corner, and I have yet to turn the corner, I'm going to chain 1. That turns the corner, and then I'm just going to join to this top of this first stitch in the round with a slip stitch. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm going to show you what you need to do, how to make the border with the main color here. So if it's all one color, this is how you're going to do it. If you are using a contrasting color for the final round of the border, stay tuned for that up next. So we have slip stitched into the first stitch, but we are going to start our border, our next round, in this second stitch. So we're going to skip this first one and we're going to work a single crochet, chain 1, single crochet into that second stitch. All of that goes into that second stitch. Then we are going to skip 1 and do it again. Single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, all into that same stitch. Skip 1 and work it again. Single crochet, chain 1, and into that same stitch, single crochet, skip, and then do it again. So you're going to complete that all across this side, and when you get to the corner, I'll show you how to turn it. Okay, so I am done with this side, and you'll notice that I have 1 stitch left unworked here. You're going to leave that unworked, and for the corner, in order to turn it, you're going to work into that chain 1 space that we had earlier, that we created in that previous round, and you're going to work a single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet all into that chain 1 space. Now, when you turn the corner, you might kind of obscure that first stitch here So when you are counting stitches to skip, you need to make sure you look at that stitch. So we're going to skip this first stitch. It might be obscured. And then we are going to continue working our single crochet, chain one, single crochet, every other stitch across. So skip one, single crochet, chain one, single crochet, skip one, do it again. All the way across till you get to the corner, and repeat the same corner instructions that I just showed you here. So as you get to the end of this side, you'll notice you have again a stitch left that you're going to leave unworked. So you're going to skip that, and you're going to work your corner sequence into that chain one space. So single crochet, chain two, and single crochet. And then skip one, and then work your side sequence here. That same single crochet, chain one, single crochet. You're just going to keep doing that all the way around, and I will meet you back at the end of the round to show you the join. All right, so I have finished this last side and I'm coming up on the last stitch. I'm going to skip that. Now, because we started with a side sequence, we still have a corner sequence left to work. So I'm going to skip that last stitch. I'm going to work my corner sequence, single crochet, chain two, single crochet, all into that chain one space. And then from here, I'm just going to slip stitch to the top of that first single crochet of the round and tie off. And so when you do that, you will have your coaster or washcloth that's all in the same color. So now let me show you how we're going to do that if you want to use a contrasting color for that last round of border. So as you come around and you finish the last or the first round of your border, and you slip stitch, after you chain one, you slip stitch to that first row or first stitch of the round to join it. Instead of continuing on with a main color, we are going to cut our yarn and attach a contrasting color. Okay. So from here, the first thing I'm going to do, because I am using a contrasting color and I don't want to risk any bleed through with my main color in my lighter color of contrasting, I'm going to go ahead and weave in my ends here. Now, when you go to weave in your ends, make sure you're leaving yourself plenty of tail to be able to kind of go a couple of directions. If you are working the washcloth, this is particularly important because it's going to be a high use item and will get washed a lot, and you're going to want to make sure that those ends stay secure. So what I like to do is I will kind of weave in a couple of directions and back and forth. So I've gone a few stitches one way, then I'm going to come back the other direction and really secure it. Now, typically, because this is a coaster, it's not really going to see a whole lot of time in the wash. So I don't worry about it so much for that. Like this one, when I worked that tail, I just did it all the way across. Normally I would maybe work it partially and then weave it back the other direction after I was done. I'm not so worried about that in this instance, but again, if you are doing that washcloth pattern, it makes sense to really make sure that you got your tails secured. So going a couple of different directions with it is a good idea. And then once all of that is done, you cut your tails and you're ready to go ahead and attach your contrasting color. For that, I've got more Lily's Sugar and Cream, and I'm doing the ecru color here. Just using some scrap yarn up. I love a good scrappy project. Now the difference here is where we're going to start. So when I showed you the main, when it's all the same color, we started with a side sequence. But because we are going to use a contrasting color, I'd prefer to start in a corner. So now this corner is kind of like where we tied off our main color. So I'm actually going to start over here simply because I don't want all of my knots and my woven in ends and stuff kind of like bunching up this corner. So I'm going to go ahead, and again, you're going to want to make sure you leave yourself a good tail. and make that slip knot. And then go find that chain 1 space, right, in the corner. And that's where you're going to attach your yarn. So from here, I'm going to work my first corner sequence, which if you remember, or if you watched the little bit beforehand, is a single crochet. So I chain 1, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. So you can see how that corner sequence is worked. I kind of have loosey-goosey stitches here, but you'll have to forgive me because I'm not gonna go back and fix it right now. So you have the single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. Now you want to skip the first stitch and then you're going to work a side sequence, but you want to make sure that you are skipping the correct stitch. Because the corner sequence is working multiple stitches into a smaller space, that single crochet can obscure the skip you need to stitch. So you don't want to accidentally skip this one and then start here. You're skipping, push that aside, there's this stitch here. That's the one you're skipping. So you're going to start your side sequence into this second stitch. So you're going to single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, skip 1, and then do it again. I didn't realize how much these colors were going to look like a Smurf. Too late now. So you're just going to keep skipping a stitch between each of these. Single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, skip 1, and then again all into that same stitch. Single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, skip 1, single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in the same stitch. Skip, do it again. Continue doing that all across the side. You'll end with 1 stitch left unworked. So you'll skip that one and you're going to work your next corner sequence into the chain 1 space. Single crochet, chain 2, into that chain 1 space again with another single crochet. And again, you're going to skip the first stitch, which it's a little funky looking right here because of all of that joining, but this is our second stitch we're going to work into. If you need to, you can count to kind of see where you need to be if you remember how many stitches you worked along that side edge. So I've ripped back out because I realized after I started counting backwards that I did misplace my first stitch. And I just want you to know that it's okay to make mistakes. Frogging is part of the process. So just to see it better, this is the first stitch of this side, so that's the one I need to skip, and I should have worked into this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish my corner sequence here that I pulled out partially. So I'm gonna skip this stitch, and I'm gonna work into this one. And the way I figured out which one that was is I went back down to the other corner, and I found my chain 1, and I know that I skipped this stitch before I work my corner. So that means that I'm placing a side sequence here and every other stitch. So if I'm placing it here, then I should also place it here, 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 so on and so forth, all the way back, so that I know that I skipped this one and I work it again here. So I'm on track again. So just wanted to point that out. Mistakes happen, it's okay to frog. So I will join you back at the end when I show you how to join. All right, so I am coming up on the final side sequence here. So I'm going to do my last single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. And here I have arrived back at my corner. I have no stitches left to work. I'm going to kind of pull a longer loop, and I'm going to tie off by slip stitching into the first single crochet, but I'm going to do it by inserting my hook from the back, putting the loop back on my hook, and pulling it through. And slip stitch that way. So basically you're just gonna tie off that way. I'm gonna pull that nice long tail out. Now all I have to do is weave in my ends, but there you go. You can see how nice that contrasting color looks against the rest of the main color body, and how each of those corners, if you want, you can block this out and use pins to make some of those corners nice and sharp. But yeah, so there you have it. That is how you work the Edith Coaster and Washcloth pattern. I hope that you enjoyed this pattern. If you need the written tutorial, photo tutorial, that is available on my blog, and I will link that below in the description box for you. There's also the Lady Edith stitch pattern video that just teaches you the more, it's more focused on just the stitch pattern itself. So if you need that little bit more in depth, that's where you should go, and I'll link that for you below as well. You should also check out the Lady Edith ear warmer, or the Edith ear warmer pattern, which I will link below for you as well. It uses a similar technique with this 2-row repeat, and it's super cute for those fall projects when you just need something lightweight to cover those ears. So that's it for today's video. If you have any questions or comments, leave those below for me. I will answer them as soon as I can. Otherwise, I hope that you give this video a thumbs up and consider following me, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye!